Welcome to the 10th edition of Governance, Policy and Practice webinar series organized by National Center of Good Governance. This time we have the pleasure of collaborating with IIM Calcutta, and we have the honor of having two very senior expert speakers who are going to talk on their expertized subjects. The first session will be taken up by Professor Manish K. Thakur, sir. The session will be on the political context of public policy. The second session will be taken by Raghav Chandra, sir. He will be speaking on the role of leadership in governance. Let me introduce you to the speakers. Professor Manish K. Thakur, sir, is currently a professor at Indian Institute of Management, Calcutta, with over 3 decades of research experience across esteemed institutions such as Indian Institute of Advanced Studies, Shimla, Goa University, and IIM Calcutta. His academic work focuses on economic sociology, disciplinary history, and management education. Professor Thakur has been widely recognized for his contributions to the field of sociology, receiving prestigious honors in Professor M.N. Srivastava Memorial Award from Indian Sociological Society. Many such awards. He has authored more than 100 articles and wrote 6 books. The second session will be taken up by Raghav Chandra, currently Professor of Practice at Indian Institute of Management, with a focus on public policy and management. Sir is retired Indian Administrative Service Officer, and he has held senior leadership across various departments of the Government of India and Government of Bangladesh. With extensive experience in economic policy, infrastructure development, and sustainability. He holds a Master's of Public Administration from the prestigious Harvard University, where he was an Edward S. Mason and a recipient of the joint Japan World Bank Graduate Scholarship. Sir has undertaken various executive management courses in the top local institutes such as Cambridge Judge School of Business, Columbia University, Berkeley University, to name a few. We welcome both the speakers. Before we start, just one request for the participants. The questions will be taken up at the end of the session. So if you have anything to ask, you may type it in the chat box and we will take it up at the end. Now I request Manish Thakur sir to take the session on the political context of public policy.
Thank you. Thank you for the invite. And I'm happy to be here. And I'm also happy. First time I am meeting, I think, Shri Raghav Chandra ji, my colleague, but somehow we have not met in person. So I'm happy to have him in the audience. I think voice is echoing. Your voice was also echoing, and I could see in chat box comments that voice is echoing. I don't know what to do.
Sir, just if I may interject, the voice is echoing, I believe, for both of us. Megha, can you check why is it echoing?
I think your voice was also echoing when you were talking. That's what I So should I go ahead or wait for technical checking? Let me carry on and then let's see how it unfolds. What do you suggest?
So we may go ahead now.
Yeah. So anyway, as you know, I come from a given disciplinary background. So I don't have the expertise and competence that my colleague Shri Raghav Chandra ji will have, and he would be talking about his own personal experience as a senior bureaucrat. My talk would be more like that of an academic, and I will just make, since I have been told that I have 20 minutes to talk and 10 minutes for questions, so I will just make 1 or 2 arguments and then try to illustrate these 2 arguments in the 20 minutes that I have. The first thing I would urge you to pay attention to is that public policy making, and that's my way of looking at things, maybe a bit provocative, is not a mere technical, technocratic, bureaucratic exercise. Most of us, and especially some of us who work in institutes like IIM, we have this mistaken idea that public policy making is just about a set of inputs, that you give a set of inputs, you have a set of policy outcomes that you want to uh, you know reach as your destination, and these inputs and outputs, and if you do a fine, elegant, modular exercise, you will succeed in policy making. Policy will achieve its goals, its objectives, and that would be the end of everything. However, uh, the way public policy textbooks teach us that public policy making is a quite messy exercise. That's why I'm purposely bringing in this word, that it's by definition, it's inherently a messy exercise. And why is public policy making a messy endeavor? It's not an elegant endeavor, and that gives you an insight into the title that I have opted for this talk. Is that in any system, and more so in a system like ours, which we call democratic, public policy making has to take on board the demands which are made or which emanate from the political system, and it has to respond to those demands. So you cannot make policy sitting in an elegant office, earlier planning commission or Niti Aayog, without conversing with the messy political realities that are there in any system, and more so in a democratic system like ours. Somehow, people like you and me, middle class professionals, in general, middle classes in India, we have some kind of, I would say, this disdain towards the very word politics. And if you look at everyday conversation, if you look at everyday rhetoric, we always say, things are getting politicized. There is too much of politicization going on. Bureaucrats are not being allowed to work independently or freely. There is, always political interference, etc., etc. So somehow, politics, political, these have become dirty words. My first submission to you would be that let's get out of this mindset that anything that has to do with politics, anything that has to do with political, is not healthy for the growth or development of this country. That's my first submission, that let's try to look at political as a way of helping us to distribute things, whatever things are there to distribute. So in one sentence, if I have to say, what is politics? So politics is a way of trying to distribute something or whatever is there to distribute, across groups, across sections, across communities, across ethnicities, across religious groups, and things like that. And that's why uh, our focus needs to be on this context, this political context. Now, the second thing that I want to say, and these are my, as I said earlier, these are the only two arguments that I would make, that uh, public policy exercise is not again merely about outcomes. We keep talking about implementation failure. We keep talking about not meeting the deadlines, not giving good services, the problems of service delivery, as the name of your center suggests, the problems of good governance, etc., etc., etc. But I would suggest that public policy is much more than outcomes. It's much more than targets. It's much more than robust implementation. It's much more than whatever, generally in a narrower way we think of. I would say that public policy making is also an exercise in political legitimation. I hope my words are clear now. It's not going any longer. So I would go further and argue that look, even when a policy fails to meet its target, even if there are policy failures, even if policies fall short of their objectives, they may succeed in doing something else. And what is this something else that I'm hinting at? And what I'm trying to say is that public policy may succeed in imparting the political regime a renewed legitimacy, a reinvigorated legitimacy, even when policies fail. So even if policies fail in an apparent way, they succeed in imparting, giving political legitimacy, political legitimation to a political regime. So these are my two arguments. I recap like a boring teacher. I will repeat that first, public policy making is inherently a political exercise. Number two, public policy making is more than the targets that are set, is more than the inputs and outputs, because they ultimately serve the purpose of giving legitimacy to a political regime. And now I will give you some of the arguments. All of you are aware this is an enlightened audience. Like just think of one of the most contemporary policy making exercises you might have heard of. It started in Bihar, something that we say caste census. After Bihar, Telangana did the caste census. After that, Karnataka has again rejected the earlier caste census, and now it's going for another round of caste census. I think it's starting sometime in September. So now, why this socio-economic survey? Why this caste survey? I'm not going to the merit of this caste survey, whether this should have been done, this should be done, or this should not be done. So what I'm trying to say is that irrespective of the merit of the exercise, the very idea or the very attempt to initiate a set of public policies around caste has certain signaling effects. What are those signaling effects? And they are political in nature. Because by trying to focus attention on caste, what you are trying to do is that you are trying to build a different type of social coalition. You are trying to get on board a different type of social constituency. You are trying to say that, look, we care for you. We care for those who would be at the lower ranks of caste hierarchy or socio-economic pyramid. So this is what I said, the signaling effect. So it's not, that's why, so it's not that, simply because we want to empower them or we want to ensure that India does not have so many poor people, so we are going for a policy. So even if we have to make, let's say, any pro-poor policy, we have to mediate it through the language of caste, because somehow we have come to internalize that it's this language of caste which in the garb of public policy would get gravitas, would get acceptance, would have larger societal acceptance by large number of people. And that also makes me talk about this, because we keep talking about caste, so I will talk about it a bit more. Just think of this OBC list. All of us are aware of the other backward classes list. I'm not talking for the moment the list at the central level. And if you look at the different groups and communities which have been included in the OBC list, what would you find? You would find that in many parts of the country, in different states of India, non-Hindu groups are also included in the OBC list. All of you know this. So if you go to Andhra and Telangana, there are many Christian groups who are part of the OBC. If you go to Kerala and Bihar, there are many Muslim groups which are part of the OBC. Now, why I am talking about these things? In a way, the textbooks, the academic writings teach you that caste is a quintessential, Hindu ideological phenomenon. But then when you include, I am not here to talk about caste and its ideology and all, but what I am trying to say that when different political parties at different points of time in this country, when they accommodated non-Hindu groups in the OBC list, what were they trying to do? They were trying to signal in the name of caste-based public policy making a different type of coalition. They were trying to create a different type of societal constituency which would go beyond a given religious denomination called Hinduism. So you are trying to appear accommodative, samaveshi. This word is being used these days quite often. Samaveshi. That look, we are trying to bring in caste, but we are not trying to eliminate other religious denominations, which theoretically do not say that they are based on caste-like hierarchy. So look at this. Secondly, there is an ongoing debate, and I think it's lying with the Supreme Court, that why even now we do not have quota for Dalit Christians. I'm talking of Christians as part of the political administrative category called scheduled caste. I think as of now, those groups, some Muslim groups like say Pasmanda Muslims in Bihar, Christians throughout the country, they are making these claims that they should be included in the scheduled caste list. So in the OBC case, we have seen that other religious groups have been accommodated. But when it comes to scheduled caste category, you would find that after 7 decades after independence, that has not been done. Again, I'm not saying whether this should be done or this should not be done, but what I want you to say that look at the political inflection of that you have Buddhists included in the list, you have Sikhs included in the list, you have Hindus, but as of now, when it comes to scheduled caste, you don't have what you say non-Hindu groups included in the list. So this brings me back to the question of political signaling, trying to build coalitions in the society, trying to generate, activate political support base through the making of public policy. Again, you might have heard that in some states, there have been attempts to introduce quota for religious minorities. They have been challenged in courts and all that. Again, whether they have succeeded to implement the quota or they have failed to implement the quota, that's besides the point. Going by the arguments that I am trying to make, it's the signaling effect that, in Karnataka some time back, in assembly, they brought a bill that, okay, we will reserve, let's say 10% of tenders, government tenders for Muslims or, any other group for that matter. So it's not a question of Muslims, Hindus, Sikhs, Christians and all that. It's the idea is that you are also trying to create coalitions and you are trying to bring in the concerns of those coalitions to the political system. And that makes me go to the last point that I am trying to conclude with. There were two political scientists. As an academic, I have to drop one or two names, otherwise you will not take me seriously. There were two well-known American political scientists, S.I. Rudolph and L.I. Rudolph, Rudolphs and Rudolphs. So they had looked at the political economic history of the country for 3 decades after independence. And they had made this argument that, look, in India, we have this demand polity and command polity. So at the central level, you have a policy establishment. Right now, let's say it's being symbolized by Niti Aayog. Those days, it was embodied in Planning Commission. So Planning Commission or Niti Aayog or any such entity, they articulate policy at the macro level, at the national level, at the central level. So that is the idea of what you say command polity. But Rudolph's, this husband-wife team, they are saying that, look, but policy making is not merely dictated by this command polity approach. What we have is that the political system, the political processes, they off and on, they throw up demands from the bottom. And it's those demands which later get channelized in the policy making process. So that's why they call like demand polity. Like, let's say, to give an illustration, that farmers demand for legal guarantee of for what is that called, MSP, minimum support price. So if we look at this, it has not been done so far, but this is a demand. And where this demand is coming from? This demand is coming from within the system. And who are the social carriers of these demands? Farmers. And how are they trying to activate those demands in a way that policy establishment listens to those demands? Through different types of agitational methods, through different types of mobilization, through different types of rasta roko, train roko, this type of agitation, that type of agitation. You might have heard, or you all of you know, that few years back the farmers' bill were taken back. Why were they taken back? Because something which was done at the policy establishment level was not enough or was not acceptable to the people who were its intended beneficiaries, or they thought, the policy establishment thought that they are the intended beneficiaries, but the beneficiaries looked at these policies as something which would harm their interests, which are going to harm their interests. So my final point is that as senior bureaucrats, as policymakers, as policy consultants, whenever you are grappling with a piece of any policy in any sector, in any domain, you have to look at these competing constellation of interests, various sectoral interests, various sectional interests. And in a system where resources are limited, ultimately, who would get how much of the public resources, or what type of public good would get priority, and what type of public would get lower levels of, would get accorded lower level of priority, and why? If we had all the resources of the world, then competing interests don't matter. But as all of us know that we don't have unlimited infinite resources, so resources have to be allocated across a range of public goods. And who decides them? And how should we decide that? What should be the parameter which would govern the allocation and distribution of resources across a range of public goods? This is the purpose of public policy, to create a range of public goods. And this ultimately, what I'm trying to say, that the ultimate arbiter of this incessant, competitive constellation of interests, the solution would lie again in the domain of politics. So, in my view, given my understanding, as you see, as you would have sensed, that I try to privilege the political when it comes to our understanding of public policy, when it comes to the exercise of public policy making, when it comes to I did not have time, even the implementation of public policy when it comes to the type of agency bureaucrats have at the national level, or the type of agency and the type of negotiations that bureaucrats have to go through at the street level. You know, the public-facing bureaucrats. In fact, there is a writer, Lipsky, who has come up with this idea of what you say, the street level bureaucracy, that how the things which get, settled in Delhi, and when those things reach in a mountainous village in Uttarakhand, much of it gets changed, and naturally so. So, my last illustration that as of now, whether Bengaluru should go for an additional greenfield airport, if it has, let's say, 600 crores of central grant, or whether it should make use of these 600 crores of grants to, for rehabilitation of urban slums, or for decongesting the traffic, the vehicular traffic in Bangalore. So this, who would decide this? This is something not in the domain of public policy. Ultimately, this public, even if it's a public policy decision, it has to be, arbitrated politically. So this is what I mean by the political context of public policy, and this is what has been my fragmented submission, that as people who are associated with public policy in any form, we should not be outright dismissive of the political. Rather, we should look at the political as a healthy, robust mechanism which brings public concerns, which brings, the sectoral concerns of many groups and people who are disprivileged, who are in a way disenfranchised, who are not very articulate. It brings in their demands through the messiness of electoral processes, political processes, through all the Rasta Roko and the Haltals and the Bunds and the different types of methods to the system. And a good, robust system responds to them. And if it does it in a continual way, that would ultimately lead to the type of public policy which would generate public goods for the maximum number of people. That's all from my side. Thank you so much. I hope I could be audible despite echoing in between. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. The session was completely audible. Now, there are a couple of questions, sir, which we will take at the end. Now, I invite Raghav Chandra, sir, to speak on the topic, the role of leadership in governance. So, you're on mute right now, Raghav, sir.
Good afternoon, everybody, and thank you, Dr. Thakur. Thank you, NCGG, for giving me this opportunity to share my thoughts. So I'll begin with sharing some general thoughts on the concept and precepts of leadership. Leadership is the cornerstone of effective governance, in my view, in every field of activity, whether it is the government or the private sector. And governance as a concept is equally applicable to both the public sector and the private sector. Thanks to the vision of leaders and the quality of their decision making, their ability to inspire and motivate collective action, effective governance is ensured. The quality of decision making, in turn, is determined by certain specific factors like the personal integrity of the leader's sense of balance and justice, his tenacious acceptance of the rule of law, their ability to build a team that will carry their vision forward forcefully, etc. In the private sector, leadership is essential. Why? It is necessary for corporate governance, for regulatory compliances. It is important for business strategy and risk taking. Without building a strong team, a leader in the private sector, a CEO or a managing director cannot be effective, cannot take his company or their company forward. In the context of India, which is a diverse and complex democracy, leadership and governance plays a pivotal role in navigating socio-economic challenges, fostering unity, driving progress, uniting the nation, reducing disparities of every kind, and reducing the geographical distinctions and the other distinctions that arise across various facets of life. At its core, governance is the process of decision making and implementation to achieve organizational goals. We live in a world characterized by disruption, uncertainty, and volatility, in which adaptive leadership is necessary to bring about clarity, decisiveness, and accuracy in decision making. Leadership provides the vision, the direction, the momentum needed to align diverse stakeholders towards common objectives. And I'll give examples in due course. In India, in particular, we are a nation which has vast cultural diversity, linguistic plurality, socio-economic disparities. Therefore, effective leadership is both a challenge and a necessity. Leadership and governance is not merely about holding power, but about wielding it responsibly to address systemic issues, to inspire trust, and to foster inclusive development. And no other country in the world requires it more than in India. Leadership and governance involves, therefore, setting a vision, mobilizing resources, ensuring accountability, and in achieving societal goals. It requires a blend of strategic thinking, emotional intelligence, ethical decision making, and the ability, as Dr. Manish Thakur also recently said, balancing competing interests, managing crises, building consensus amongst diverse groups. So, some of the key attributes of leadership are, therefore, the ability to craft a suitable vision and, depending on that vision, an appropriate policy formulation. Effective leaders articulate a clear vision for the future, translating it into actionable policies. If you make vague, abstract vision and policies, nobody will be able to implement them. But a good leader is able to craft and decide on the right vision, the right policies, and is therefore makes them implementable. They anticipate challenges and design frameworks to address them, ensuring long-term sustainability. Design of the right constitution and vision statements and action points. And this applies not only in government, about which we'll talk about, but also in the private sector. And therefore, we have companies which are successful. For instance, companies such as Infosys, of Narayan Murthy ji, Azim Premji's Wipro, the Tata companies have been largely successful. And that is essentially because they have had the right vision and the right policy formulation, the right systems they have chosen the right people to lead the companies at the right times. They have good boards, they are professional in their management, in their compliances, and which is why they have been strategic successes and have high market caps. Crisis management. Leaders are often tested during crises when their ability to make swift, informed decisions can determine a nation's resilience and prove to be make or break situations. And we have seen that in the case of India, where we had a massive COVID crisis, but the Prime Minister, Mr. Modi, rose like a proper leader up front and brought the nation together to resolve this emergency and in maintaining the law and order, protecting citizens. And we had, from practically deficiencies in PPEs, we became surplus in PPEs. We managed our supply chain effectively. All the factories were able to do their work. Disaster management by collectors and district magistrates came to the fore very effectively. Trace, isolate, test, treat became the buzzwords, And overall, India proved to be successful in crisis management during COVID times. And we were not only able to produce PPEs, but we were able to export them and export COVID vaccines as well under the METRI program. Leaders are able to inspire unity and trust. In diverse societies, leaders foster unity by bridging divides and building trust in institutions, and thereby in assimilating institutions and bodies which may otherwise be disparate and which may want to move in different directions. And the best example of that is Sardar Patel, who brought about the unification of the states. India had about 600 princely kingdoms, all pulling in different directions, but we were able to assimilate them. It was entirely the leadership of Sardar Patel which brought them together. It was his leadership that gave us a civil service today which unites the country. A boy from or a girl from Manipur could be posted in Tamil Nadu or Kerala. Somebody from Tamil Nadu or Kerala could be posted in Sikkim or Arunachal Pradesh. And that is the beauty of the civil services, which I think other nations should envy. And we should be proud of the fact that we have a civil service which unites the country today. Ethical governance, integrity and ethics in the conduct of leaders is extremely important, and that determines good governance. Upholding strong moral and ethical values brings about public trust, sets the moral tone for governance, ensuring transparency, accountability, and fairness. One classic example of a political leader is Lal Bahadur Shastri, who resigned when there was a railway accident. And we have innumerable examples of people who have risen to the occasion to prove how ethics are important in public life, ethics are important in private life as well. And the corporate sector, we hear in the newspapers of people who have committed regulatory infractions. Had they been more ethical, they could have led their companies forward. We've had the case recently of Gensol and the company which failed entirely because the promoters, they started siphoning out money for their personal requirements. It was an unethical practice, and that jeopardized the future of a company which was doing extremely well. And as a result of that, Blue Smart has collapsed as a taxi service. It is important to drive innovation and reform, and progressive leaders initiate systemic reforms and adapt to the changing global dynamics. They are able to introduce new concepts, new innovations. Of course, historically, we've had people like APJ Abdul Kalam, Dr. C.V. Raman, Dr. Homi Bhabha, the great nuclear scientist who set in motion our nuclear and rocketry and space program. But even on a day-to-day basis, we come across the startup revolution that has happened in India, which is essentially because we gave emphasis to a Startup India program, and as a result of which today we are happy to say that there are more than 100 unicorns in India, and every now and then we have a new unicorn which is developing. All that is only possible because we've provided a climate where innovation can take place, and this is constantly happening in the space sector, in the agriculture sector, in the finance sector, everywhere where constantly new innovations are taking place, which are being encouraged by both the government and the private sector, and therefore we have great progress in these sectors. If we were to look at political leaders historically, then no talk about leadership and governance can be complete unless we can mention at least about Mahatma Gandhi's great leadership role during India's fight for independence, which exemplifies the power of ethical leadership and governance. Gandhiji's philosophy of non-violence, ahimsa, and truth, satyagrah, and his Dandi Salt March and his Swadeshi movement galvanized millions and laid the foundation for a governance model rooted in moral authority, which has since then been also copied by Nelson Mandela in South Africa and several others. His leadership was instrumental in uniting diverse communities against colonial rule, demonstrating the importance of inclusivity in governance. And there is one particular concept of his which I would like to mention here in this context, that if something is correct, accept it with firmness and determination and vigor. But if something is not correct, reject it but without hurting sentiments, reject it with humility, without arrogance. सत्य को दृढ़ता से स्वीकार करो और असत्य का विनम्रता से प्रतिकार करो. Gandhiji's success and the fact that he chose not to be the first Prime Minister of India underscores the role of leadership in governance, moral leadership. His ability to align diverse groups was particularly important in transforming societal structures, etc. Pandit Jawaharlal Nehru, as India's first Prime Minister, his vision of a secular, democratic, and industrialized India and a commitment to institutional building, as evidenced by the setting up of the Planning Commission, the Indian Institutes of Technology, etc., were particularly vital for providing leadership in governance. Mrs. Indira Gandhi's, as the first female Prime Minister, her decisive leadership in governance, which was exemplified by the Indo-Bangladesh War, where we liberated Bangladesh, and the Green Revolution, transforming India's agricultural sector, etc., were extremely important and classic examples of leadership in governance. Our current Prime Minister, Narendra Modi ji's tenure from 2014 is characterized by innumerable examples of leadership in governance. His minimum government, maximum governance philosophy emphasizes efficiency and accountability, as seen in initiatives like the GST, the Goods and Services Tax, the JAM Trinity, Chandan, Aadhaar, Mobile. His leadership, as I mentioned, during the COVID-19 pandemic, demonstrating crisis management and resourcefulness, the Swachhata Abhiyan, which has immensely changed the landscape of India, the Man Ki Baat Karikram, by which he connects directly with the people. And as an administrator who has been in project management for a long time, and especially as chairman of the National Highways Authority, I would in particular mention the Pragati program, under which the Prime Minister himself used to monitor and is still monitoring delayed projects. And I used to find that all the chief secretaries being there, all the various ministries and related departments being there, this brought everyone together on a common platform for a common national objective of ensuring that projects were not delayed, and this immensely helped project implementation. If you were to look at civil servants in the past, then we've had classic examples of people like T.N. Seshan, who was Chief Election Commissioner, who introduced voter ID cards, set about electoral transparency and inclusivity, and restored public trust in the Election Commission, making it a robust pillar of Indian democracy. Shri Dharan Saab, who was the Managing Director of Delhi Metro, his work in setting up Delhi Metro, where there were no templates or no systems, and going underground below the surface. These were things which people had not envisaged at that time, as a result of which DMRC is one of the success stories of India in terms of infrastructure. The great General Manekshaw, Sam Manekshaw, during the 71 war, the way he led India to victory and the decisions that he took, his timeliness in taking action and command, delaying, pausing, making the right pauses, dealing with the vast Indian armed forces. All these were great examples of people who have done extremely well. If you were to look at the international scenario, then Satya Nadella, as the chief of Microsoft, and his decision to invest in Amazon Web Services to make it the best cloud service platform in the world has led to immense profits for Amazon, which would have otherwise remained just a retail e-commerce company. But today it is at the front line of not just e-commerce, but also of high tech. Rachel Carson, the marine biologist and author who first introduced the concept of climate change and brought to our attention the damages caused by pesticides, and especially synthetic pesticides, through a book, Silent Spring, was one of the first pioneers of environment in the world. Ernest Shackleton, the great adventurer, although he dates back more than 100 years, but for 500 days, while they were exploring the Antarctic, They were shipwrecked, stuck in the middle of the Antarctica. Their ship got broken, and they were not able to touch land for 500 days. Yet he managed to get his team together, save all his sailors. They had to eat all kinds of things, but they managed to survive. That is, again, were it not for his leadership, they could not have survived. If you were to look at my own examples, well, I just want to mention quickly in 2-3 minutes, because I know time is running out. As SDM in Ashok Nagar in 1984, there was a particular time when the 1984 Sikh riots, Mrs. Gandhi had been assassinated, and we had a very large Gurdwara in the heart of Ashok Nagar, where I was SDM, and we had some of the top political leaders in Madhya Pradesh from Ashok Nagar. We had the leader of the opposition. We had an equally powerful person from the ruling party who was there, and they all wanted to lead processions across the city and wanted to attack the Gurdwara. I did not have any police force because Ashok Nagar was a very mufassal city, but I galvanized every village chowkidar and I made him a special police officer, got the forest department to open their depot, gave each one of them a lathi, and we guarded the Gurdwara till it was absolutely safe. So much so that Mr. Digvijay Singh, who was all these leaders, they rang up the chief minister that a curfew has been imposed by this young SDM, he should be transferred. The chief minister, Mr. Arjun Singh, sent Mr. Digvijay Singh, who came, and despite these people telling things against me that he has been too strict, he protected me and said he has done excellent work. Likewise, there have been innumerable instances of removal of encroachments in Jabalpur, where I was district magistrate, where we found that people had encroached so much onto national highways that from within their houses we could recover marble fountains dating back to Queen Victoria's time and with regular inscriptions. So you can imagine the extent of encroachments on public roads that had taken place. One particular example that I want to mention is about organizing rural Olympics in Madhya Pradesh, which was so much of a success and that has not been emulated ever since. As a result of which ESPN and Star TV, they sent one of their top teams to present me a bat signed by the entire Indian cricket team and said this was a historic occasion where every village, every panchayat, every police station participated across Madhya Pradesh. And it was a massive, massive event. Likewise, in India, we have had success stories in leadership and governance. The Tiger Conservation Program of India has been extremely successful. A lot of private museums are being set up. As I mentioned, the startup revolution has been particularly important. And before I end, I want to mention that leadership is like managing an orchestra. You have to get and allow everybody a chance to give their best, to encourage them, to motivate them, at best to modulate them, not to regulate and control them, and to be happy about their success and to share their success and promote their success. As somebody said, leadership is not about being in charge, it is about taking care of those in charge. A leader takes people where they want to go. A great leader takes people where they don't necessarily want to go, but ought to be. And finally, the strength of governance derives from the integrity of its leaders. Nearly all men can stand adversity, but if you want to test a man's character, give him power. Thank you.
Thank you, sir, for a very enriching deliberation. With your permission, I will go ahead with the questions or the comments that are given in the chat box. The first one, as given by Mr. Ashish Mohapatra for Professor Thakur, is that, in my view, policy development involves creating proposal, discussion, and deliberations with stakeholders, review, and finalization. In your perspective, what is wrong with policy making, or do we have too many policies but mostly we have failed in implementation? This gap highlights the challenges where policies, despite being well intentioned, and carefully crafted fail to achieve their desired impact?
Just now we have heard Shri Raghav Chandra ji, and from his own experience and throughout his talk, he has cited many cases where policies have really succeeded. He mentioned many during his talk. So I think we should not be so pessimistic, Ashish Mahapatra ji, that all policies are doomed to failure. He just talked about, you talked
I,
about.
I didn't say no,
No,
all policies.
I know.
Most of the policies.
Of course, some policies will fail. There could be design problems. And only one thing I want to add, you have given your observations. It's not a question in that sense that I do agree with you that different types of stakeholders need to be consulted. But the ultimate point is that how do you bring in what I said, the competing interests of those stakeholders in a framework where the optimal public good gets created. And that's why, and in India, more or less, we have, opted for a framework of accommodation of different interests, and not, coercive type of transformation. That's the framework we have opted for. And so that's my comment on your comment, so to say.
One more question from Sir Manish Sir by Dr. Jagdish. He's saying that, sir, nowadays most policies are made with the primary purpose of benefiting political parties rather than focusing on people's development. They prioritize glorification over proper implementation and result-oriented outcome. Is it a failure of leadership, a failure of bureaucratic officers to implement policies effectively, or are the people themselves responsible for electing such representatives?
I think, as I said, policy making in a democratic framework is not a neat, clean, sanitized, elegant exercise. So I use the word messiness. So it's part of that messiness. So let's not try to, put the blame either on political party or central bureaucrats for whatever failure we have. In fact, political parties theoretically they themselves are an important stakeholders of the system because they are the carriers of public concerns. They channelize public concerns to the policy making establishment. So I would suggest that, and they are bound to do that. I don't find anything unnatural if political parties also take the credit or try to share the what you say glory of a successful policy or a policy making exercise that they have initiated. So there is nothing wrong in that. These things are bound to happen, and we should not be too much worried about this messiness. That's what.
Thank you, sir. For Raghav, sir, the first query is, leaders in civil service face bureaucratic resistance. How can situations like this can be handled appropriately? One more small question, sir, by Indira ji, which is, how can we ensure policy continuity in changing political climate and mandates?
So my take on this is that we do face various hurdles from amongst our own colleagues sometimes, some mostly senior colleagues who may be diffident about taking a risk or taking a particular step, and I face that all across my life. But that's part of the fabric of of governance, that you will constantly face hurdles, but it is your deftness, your ability to be able to circumvent them. And so you need to be able to, as a leader, convince people both above and people below, your peer group. It's how well you canvass your case. It is your doggedness and sometimes even your stubbornness which is important. You can't be totally, somebody passes a remark, and there have been occasions where people have passed snide remarks or said that this, I remember once I was commissioner of the housing board, the CEO of the housing board, and my own principal secretary, for some reason, he was offended about something. And there was a property land which was earlier a lot, which was low-lying property, which got vacated, and we were going to build a 16-story complex there. And he said, Raghav Chandra, how many years of service do you have left? I said, sir, 17. He said, I don't think in 17 years you will be able to build more than 5 stories. Nobody will permit you to build 16 stories. And we were able to build it. There was all kinds of resistance. It went up to the chief minister, even a retired former, very great civil servant who was much respected, went to the chief minister and said we should not allow high rises. But I stuck to my guns. I was able to persuade them, able to convince the chief minister, and we built it. And today it stands out as one of the better buildings in Bhopal, called Platinum Park, Platinum Plaza, which was built some 20 years ago. But the point is that you have to have the courage of your convictions. You have to be sure of what you're doing. And there are innumerable examples of people like Mr. Anil Swaroop, Mr. Kant, and various other people who have stood by their convictions and succeeded. So that's the kind of clarity you have to have in your vision to be able to carry this forward. And likewise, you have political resistance. The only point at which I have not been succeeded in being able to, convince is when a political motivated transfer has occurred. That was beyond my capacity to deal with. And so I have suffered it and accepted it and gone to a new place and done whatever best I could in the new place.
So about policy continuity in changing political climates.
Yeah, that's very important. It's very important to maintain continuity, and therefore your decision making should be chronicled, recorded. You should be able to build a team such that there will be institutional memory and institutional continuity. And this is a constant failing of our several of us bureaucrats, that we are able to do something wonderful in our time, but it ceases the moment we leave. So record keeping, especially in today's world where we have clouds, where material can be stored, it's very, very important to document all your achievements. It is important to chronicle them. It is also important to record what have been the shortcomings, what have been the reasons for the shortcomings, what could have been done better, how it could have been done better, and to involve people, both from the private sector, from citizenry and the government and below you, who will be able to sustain that momentum and carry it forward, perhaps in a more innovative, perhaps in an improved way. And one should not feel that anything that you have done well is entirely your own thing, or that you have to have ownership of it. You should have ownership in terms of accountability, but not that after you have gone, that there should not be it should not be further implementable or carried forward. The baton has to be carried forward. A successful administrator is one whose actions and reforms and transformations can be carried forward equally well by others, perhaps even in a better and improved way.
Thank you, sir. Thank you both of you. I mean, Raghav sir and Manish sir, for giving us time, and we had a large audience to listen to you this time. Approximately 85 people joined in, and I hope everybody will have gained something or the other as part of the discussions that have happened. And thank you for being part of the 10th webinar series for good governance under National Center for Good Governance. There is a comment somebody has written that what does NCGG works on policy? So we do work on policy impact evaluation, and as any government or any ministries work comes to us, we are also into advocacy or redesigning the policies whenever required. So we are into that kind of work policy wise, and then we do many other things. So thank you once again, Raghav sir, Manish sir, for sparing time. Yes.
Thank you
And
for
thank you everybody for joining. Yes, sir.
No, I was just thanking you for this invite and giving us a platform to share some of the ideas with everyone.
Thank you, sir. And thank you to all the participants. This is a monthly webinar. We will bring some very good experts, just like today, the next time as well. So thank you for joining in. We close this webinar for today. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, everybody.